Hey, do you need a new computer? Yeah? Well, you're in luck. Here's a 2012 MacBook Pro, just for you. Oh, you don't want it because it's old? Well, to each their own, I guess. Old tech actually appeals to many, and today I'm going to be talking about in what ways that old technology is in fact better than new technology. As stupid as that sounds. If you're not a prosumer or a hardcore consumer, then there's really no need for you to drop $1,000 on an M-series Mac. The only exception to that is the extremely wealthy, who see stuff like this as pocket change because it's worth basically nothing to them. I didn't buy this is my school's, so yeet. For most casual and lower-end consumers, especially if you're not Scrooge McDuck, then investing in older technology is very beneficial. This is due to the fact that old technology is affordable, fixable, and is still powerful in 2023. As the years go on, old technology that originally came out with a very high price point tend to lose much of their value by the time that they're a decade old, unless you have reached the point in its life expectancy where the price does kind of start to come back, especially in resale. A great example of this is this iMac right here. When this first retailed back in 2010, this specific configuration of the 21.5-inch iMac was worth about $1,500 to $1,600. And now you can buy one of these off of eBay between $70 and $200. While online shopping is very convenient, sometimes you can get better deals at local thrift stores. Well, you won't always get lucky, as it's not very common that Macs really appear in thrift stores. And yes, while online shopping is more convenient, it is a little bit riskier than shopping in person, as it always has been, because not only can you not directly look at the computer that you're buying and check out that what you're being sold is what you're being sold, scamming is much higher risk on sites like eBay and I guess Craigslist, OfferUp. I don't know where they sell Macs. If you search for Macs from lowest to greatest price on eBay, you'll find a lot of broken ones. Sometimes this can be bad, especially when you're looking for a MacBook, you find a really good listing, and it turns out it has no parts and it's just the shell. However, if you do find a Mac with all of its parts, but it's just a bit broken, it's very easy to repair it, especially the older ones. Older computers in general are much more fixable and upgradable to their modern counterparts. For example, some of you who lived during the mid to late 2000s, if you're watching, you could remember that some laptops had easily accessible trapdoors where all you had to do was take off a screw or open a little latch, and now you have access to upgrade the memory or the hard drive. This also applies to the older Macs, as unlike their modern counterparts, the older Macs used generic parts. So if you wanted to upgrade the storage or the memory, you can easily just go on and buy generic RAM, generic hard drives, SSDs if you want. It was that easy back then. Let's say that you got swindled by Apple and you purchased a 2020 M1 MacBook Air, and you decided that because you want to save a bit of money, you wanted to get the lowest configuration possible. But then, later down the line, you want to upgrade the memory or the hard drive space because your computer is running too slow or you run out of storage. Whatever shall you do? Well, because of the way Apple designs these things now with the M1 chips having everything integrated, you can't upgrade anything. So you're going to have to drop another $1,000 on a new MacBook just to upgrade maybe another 250 gigs of storage, maybe more. Not worth it in my opinion. While yes, I 100% agree that the Apple Silicon chips are significantly faster than the older ones and are some of the top chips that you can use in a computer nowadays, the caveat to using higher power in Macs is that you give up your upgradability. And that's one of my biggest turnoffs when it comes to the newer Macs. And now let's say that something in your Mac breaks and you want to fix it. Well, usually you can buy the part off of the internet. It's not that hard. But as I've learned recently, what Apple's been doing since like maybe about 3 to 4 years ago is they have been pairing components to the logic boards. They've been doing this in their iPhones, maybe the iPads, and the MacBooks, and maybe the iMacs. I've mostly just seen the iPhones and the MacBooks. But what this means is that if you buy a third-party component and replace it yourself, the phone or computer won't recognize it properly, and chances are it's not going to work right. The only way for you to do a proper repair, according to Apple, is to join the repair program, which still charges you a lot of money, and then you have to go through a pairing process with an Apple engineer who might not even know what the hell they're doing. Back to the point about buying broken Macs off of eBay. If you do find one at a really cheap price and it has all of its main components and you know how to fix it, you can easily spend almost no money on an older Mac and get it 100% working with very little effort. That is absolutely incredible that you can't do with newer tech. And if you do get an older MacBook or iMac from watching this video, one thing I strongly recommend you do, and what most people recommend you do, install an SSD. That will be the greatest thing that will ever happen to that Mac. I had regular spinning hard drives in both my 2012 MacBook and 2010 iMac. I upgraded them both to SSDs and they are now blazing fast when it comes to loading things. Obviously the processors aren't the greatest, but it is significantly smoother in experience. While obviously not as fast as the Apple Silicon processors, older Macs still have great CPUs for what you need them to do. However, there is a cutoff point depending on what you need. If a program that you need to use is only supported on a minimum version, then use a computer that maxes out at that version. For example, I use High Sierra on all of my Macs because that is the minimum that supports some of the programs I need, and most of the programs I use are older anyway that support older versions of Mac OS. So it really depends on your need, but in general, I think a good cutoff point would probably be El Capitan, which is Mac OS 10.11. So when you're looking around and you see a Mac that you think would be good, make sure to check. For example, this MacBook is a 2009 and it has a very dated design, but this can run up to El Capitan as it has a Core 2 Duo processor. So it could do pretty decently. Core 2 Duos, although old, some of the newer ones can actually run extremely decently. If you're looking into the 2010 through 2012 era Macs, most of the time they have i5 processors. Some of the newer ones may have i7 processors, and even though they're older generations, they still run phenomenally. I've had plenty of experience with already using a bunch of different programs on these Macs, and I've had nothing but great experiences. I have yet to try video editing, but so far animation, a little bit of gaming, and web browsing has been completely fine for this. Short side note here, on some of the older iMac models you actually can replace the CPU with relative ease. You would have to basically take the entire logic board out, but the CPU uses a socket and isn't directly attached to the motherboard. So as long as you have a compatible processor, you absolutely could upgrade the processing power in your iMac. It's not as easy on the MacBooks, but it is entirely possible. There's videos online that I've seen people do it. It is really cool. So before you go out and impulsively buy an Apple Silicon Mac or throw away your old MacBook, make sure to stop and think about your decision. Because if you have access to a perfectly capable, perfectly fixable, and perfectly powerful computer at your disposal, then I'd say just roll with it for as long as you can until app support completely goes to waste. But there is an advantage to that, as you can patch the operating system, as you can put Ventura on both of these. Thanks for watching.